Some stories are told to frighten, others are told because someone needs to be remembered. Today we won't talk about invented monsters, but about real tragedies that became legends. People whose pain was so profound that it crossed the line between life and death. And they all have something in common. The true horror didn't begin when they became ghosts, but long before, when they were still breathing. Part 1. The love that refused to die. Let's start with something we all think we understand. Love. We're told that love conquers all, that it's stronger than anything. But what happens when love refuses to accept death? When someone loves so much that their spirit clings to the world just to be near the one they adored? These are stories of bonds that not even the grave could break. May Nak waited on the pier. Bangkok, early 1820. They were in the small village of Pranong. Her husband, Mac, had left for the war months before, and she was pregnant when he departed. What Mac didn't know was that Nak died during childbirth. She and the baby. A silent tragedy that never reached his ears while he fought far from home. When Mac finally returned, exhausted and covered in dust from the road, the first thing he saw was Nak. She was there, on the wooden dock by the canal, holding her baby, smiling that gentle smile he remembered from those cold nights in the field. She welcomed him with open arms. She made him sticky mango rice, his favorite dish. She lit the candles in the house. She spoke to him in that sweet voice he had missed for months. Everything was warm, everything was normal, everything was exactly as Mac remembered it. But the neighbors remained silent. When Mac walked through the market, people looked away. Mothers grabbed their children and crossed to the other side of the road. No one went near his house. Rumors spread like wildfire. Nak had died months ago. What Mac had at home wasn't his wife. The elders begged him to go to the temple, to speak with the monks. But Mac ignored them. He trusted what he saw, what he felt. The warmth of his home, his wife's caresses, his son's laughter, that was real. The rest was just the superstitions of envious people. Until that night. Naik was preparing dinner on the dock. He dropped a lime into the water beneath the wooden planks, and instead of bending down to pick it up, his arms stretched out. Not like a person's arms. They lengthened impossibly, unnaturally, slithering under the house like snakes until they reached the fruit. Max saw it all, and in that moment, he understood that the neighbors were right. She fled weeping to the temple, trembling with fear and grief. And when Nak realized Mac was gone, that she finally knew the truth, something inside her broke. The spirit that had maintained a sweet and calm demeanor exploded in fury. She roared with pain, tormenting anyone who came near the house. The villagers were so terrified that they planned to abandon the village altogether. It all ended when the monk Seto arrived. Through a powerful ritual, he spoke to Nak's spirit, not with violence, but with compassion. He told her that her love had been beautiful, but that keeping the living in the world of the dead only brought suffering. Nak finally listened. She let go. Her ashes were sealed in a sacred jar that is kept to this day at Wat Mahabut Temple. Some say that if you approach the jar in silence, you can still hear a soft cry, not a cry of fear, a cry of farewell. Okiku counted plates in the dark. Japan, Edo period, 17th century. At Himeji Castle, a young woman named Okiku served, entrusted with the house's most valuable treasure, a set of 10 inherited porcelain plates, so ancient they were considered sacred. Okiku cleaned them every day with almost religious care. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Always 10, always complete. Her master, the samurai Aoyama Tessen, desired her. He made advances that she respectfully but firmly rejected. Okiku valued her honor above all else, and Aoyama was a married man. But her rejection only intensified his obsession, until one day, Aoyama decided that if he couldn't have her willingly, he would have her through fear. Yet she hid the 10th plate, and when Okiku went to do her daily count, her world crumbled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. She counted again, her hands trembling. 9. Her heart began to pound. She checked every corner, every shelf. Nothing. The plate was gone. Aoyama summoned her that very afternoon. He accused her of theft, a crime punishable by torture and death at that time. Okiku swore she hadn't touched him, that she had cared for them as always. But Aoyama leaned close to her and whispered a deal. Serve me as a wife should serve her husband, and I will forgive you. Okiku refused. She defended her honor and her truth to the very end. Enraged by the humiliation, Aoyama beat her until she could barely move. He dragged her through the castle corridors to the well in the courtyard, and without another word, he pushed her into the darkness. Her body sank into the icy water, but her spirit did not. Soon after, a voice began to rise from the well every night, soft at first, then clearer. a woman counting in a low voice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then a blood-curdling scream. The 10th count never came. But it did come for Aoyama. In his room, in the darkness, he felt Okiku's cold breath on his ear. And he heard the number she could never utter in life. 10. Guilt consumed him. The counting never stopped. And Aoyama finally left the castle, driven mad, haunted by the voice he could never silence. Lady Dorothy lived for 6 years in a single room. England, Norfolk, 1720s. Her full name was Lady Dorothy Walpole, and she was once known for her warmth and easy laughter. She married young to Charles Townshend, an influential man. At first it seemed like a good match. They had children. They hosted dinner parties. Life at Raynham Hall was prosperous, until Charles discovered that Dorothy had secretly met with a former admirer. Just a conversation, a letter, nothing that could be proven as infidelity. But for Charles, that didn't matter. He called it betrayal, public humiliation, and he decided that Dorothy would pay for it in the cruelest way possible. He didn't kill her. He didn't expel her. He did something worse. He erased her. Dorothy was forbidden from leaving her room. She couldn't have visitors. She couldn't write letters. And most devastating of all, her children were taken from her. She could hear them playing in the hallways, their laughter echoing through the house, but she was never allowed near them. She lived in the same house where her family ate dinner, laughed, and carried on. But she was completely cut off, a prisoner in her own home. The months turned into years, 6 long years in which Dorothy slowly faded away. The brown silk dress she wore lost its luster. Her skin became waxed. Her once bright eyes sank into her face. By the time she died in that room, she was a mere shadow of her former self. But Raynham Hall did not free her. In 1936, photographers documenting the house captured something inexplicable, a figure descending the grand staircase. A woman in a brown dress, her face pale, with dark empty eye sockets. It is one of the most famous ghost photographs in history. Since then, visitors have reported seeing her glide through the locked hallways, silent and weightless, still trapped in the house that was her prison. Bull Part 2, The Broken Mind. Now we're leveling up, because what's coming isn't sadness, it's discomfort. It's the kind of horror that doesn't need blood to make you feel vulnerable. These are stories about people who were pushed so far, abused so deeply, that something inside them was broken forever. Maria Labo was a mother, Philippines, 1980s. She was young, with 2 small children and a husband who worked in the fields. They didn't have much money, so when she was offered a job abroad as a nanny, she saw it as a blessing. She could send money home, give her children the education she never had. She left with hope. The house where she worked was large and elegant, but her employer was cruel. He demanded perfection in every task, every second of the day. The slightest mistake was punished with shouting and humiliation. And one night, he crossed the line. He sexually assaulted her, not once, repeatedly. He reminded her daily that she was beneath him, that she was worthless, that she should be grateful to him for having a job. Maria endured the abuse for years. She couldn't go home a failure. She couldn't tell her family what she was going through. The shame was too great, so she kept it all inside. Every blow, every insult, every night of terror, until her mind couldn't take it anymore. One morning, Maria collapsed in the kitchen. At the hospital, doctors noticed worrying signs, memory lapses, emotional numbness, episodes where she seemed to be somewhere else. But she didn't speak. She just stared into space. The agency sent her back to the Philippines, saying she could no longer work. At first, with her family, Maria seemed normal. She cooked, cleaned, and smiled. But she startled at loud voices. She forgot conversations. And sometimes she looked at her children with a quiet, frightened sadness, as if she didn't quite recognize them. One night, her husband came home and smelled stew. Maria was stirring a large pot, humming softly to herself. "Where are the children?" he asked. Maria pointed to the stove, without stopping her stirring. He laughed, thinking it was a joke. But when he walked over and lifted the lid, his world crumbled. Inside the pot, floating in the broth, was a small human finger. Maria stared at him, her eyes blank, as if she couldn't understand why he was screaming. Her husband, consumed by horror and rage, grabbed a machete from the wall and slashed her face. The blade split her cheek from side to side. Maria staggered backward and fled into the night, and half her face torn and bleeding. It is said that she still wanders the lonely roads, whispering through her tears, "Have you seen my children?" never remembering what she did to her own son. Because that wasn't Maria. Maria died years ago in that foreign house. The Bell Witch promised death. Tennessee, United States, 1817. In the settlement of Red River, the Bell family lived on an isolated farm, surrounded by woods and empty fields. Life was peaceful, until the whispers began. soft tapping on the walls at night, sheets that moved on their own, and then a voice. Clear, cold, directed at two specific people: Betsy Bell, the youngest daughter, and her father, John Bell. For Betsy, the nights became torture. She heard her name whispered from the dark corners of her room. She felt her hair being pulled when she was alone. The voice mocked her every time she cried, every time she prayed. But John Bell had it worse. The presence openly cursed him, promising he wouldn't live much longer. And John began to get sick. He developed violent, medically unexplained attacks of suffocation, convulsions that left him bedridden for days. The doctors could find nothing wrong with his body, but he visibly deteriorated. And as his health worsened, the voice repeated the same warning every night. "Your end is near, John Bell." One winter morning, the family found John unconscious in his bed. Beside him was his medicine bottle, but it was filled with a strange black liquid that no one recognized. John never woke up. And as the family stood around his body, weeping, the voice spoke from the shadows of the room, cold, satisfied. "I gave him that dose. Now he will never wake up again." And then it began to sing, a lullaby, soft and chilling, as the Bell family wept over the corpse. After John's death, the house fell silent. The spirit devastated a family and then simply vanished. To this day, John Bell's death is the only one in U.S. history officially attributed to a supernatural entity. Eyre was buried alive. Malaysia, 1900s, near Kedah. Newly married and already pregnant, Eyre harbored a secret she never wanted to reveal. The baby had been conceived before the wedding. Her husband discovered this shortly after the ceremony, and to save face, he told the villagers that Eyre had run away in shame. Days later, some children playing near the banana grove behind their house noticed something strange in the soil. A hand, pale, stiff, and reaching upward as if it had been clawing its way toward the daylight. When the villagers dug, they found Eyre's body. Her fingernails were broken, filled with dirt. Her mouth was frozen mid-scream. She had been buried alive, her unborn child still inside her. That same night, her husband disappeared. In the morning, he was found in the same woods, his eyes wide open, dirt in his mouth, and slight bruises around his neck. No footprints, no signs of a struggle. And then the ghostly haunting began. Men passing through the woods at night smelled an intense aroma of frangipani blossoms, even though none grew in that area. Women heard soft weeping among the banana trees. And late at night, farmers heard fingernails slowly scraping the tree trunks, like something sharpening its claws. Part 3. When the dead man strikes back. Now we come to the end. And this is where the narrative shifts. Because these last two stories aren't about passive victims. They're about souls who aren't seeking peace. They're seeking justice, or revenge. Julian Santana lived alone on an island, Mexico, 1950s, in the canals of Xochimilco. Most of the farmers worked on the floating islands called chinampas during the day and left every night. But Julian chose to stay, sleeping in a small wooden hut, surrounded by dark water, cultivating vegetables in complete solitude. One afternoon, while working near the shore, Julian found something floating near his island. A little girl, drowned, alone. There was no one else around. No one reported her missing. Julian never found out who she was or where she came from. But the image stayed with him. Days later, a doll appeared tangled in the reeds on the shore. Julian hung it from a tree as a small offering, hoping the girl's spirit wouldn't feel forgotten. And then, little by little, he kept adding more. Old dolls he found in piles of trash. Damaged toys he traded for vegetables at the market. Each one hung from the trees on his island, believing that each doll gave the girl a friend, a companion, so she wouldn't wander alone. Over the years, the trees became covered. Hundreds of dolls, cracked faces, lifeless eyes, dangling limbs. Visitors arriving by boat said they felt something strange on the island, as if all those dolls were watching them. 50 years later, Julian's nephew came to help him with the harvest. That morning, Julian said something strange to him. "The girl called to me again from the water." His nephew dismissed it. Julian often spoke like that, as if he had been conversing for years with someone only he could see. But minutes later, Julian disappeared. His nephew searched the entire island until he reached the edge of the canal, and there he saw him, floating face down. He drowned in the exact same spot where, 50 years earlier, he said he had found the girl. Today, the island of the dolls is still there. The dolls still hang, slowly deteriorating. And visitors say that, on some nights, if you listen closely, you can hear two voices whispering among the trees. One little girl's voice, and one an old man's. Sita just wanted to go home. India, early 20th century, near Junjunu, Rajasthan. Her family had arranged her marriage to a respected man, but Sita loved another, Ram Kishan, a farm laborer, and she was pregnant with his child. Yet it's when she revealed it, The disaster was immediate. Her family, fearing public humiliation, sent her away to a cousin's house in Sitamarhi, Bihar, nearly 1,200 kilometers away, from everyone she knew, from the man she loved. There, she was treated like a burden, hidden away, restricted, cut off from the world. Heartbroken, Sita plotted her escape. One night, exhausted and pregnant, she fled to the highway, pleading with passing buses, "Please help me get home to my husband." Most ignored her, until one man stopped. He said he was headed to Rajasthan. Sita trusted him. She told him her story. She believed she was finally going home, but he drove off the main road. He attacked her, he raped her, and he abandoned her in an empty field where no one could find her. After her death, IE drivers passing that stretch of highway began talking about a woman who hitchhiked at night, weeping softly. "Please, help me get home to my husband." Those who stopped kindly said she would vanish from their seats without opening the door. But drivers with malicious intent have a different story. They were found off the road, in ditches, swearing they saw a woman walk away from their headlights, her feet twisted backward, and some were never able to drive again, because the last thing they saw before the crash was her face in the rearview mirror, right behind them, smiling. We've reached the end, and if you've made it this far, you've already seen it. No story begins with a ghost, it begins with a person, with love, hope, innocence, and then something human breaks it. Jealousy, abuse, shame, silence. Ghosts are just the echo of a pain that not even death could erase. So, the question isn't which was the most tragic, but how many continue to happen today without anyone remembering them. If this video touched you, leave a like and subscribe. And if you know a local legend, leave it in the comments. See you in the next one.